Okay, brand new video series for you. This is the pilot episode. This is Steve and Mike. I won't tell you who is who. You'll have to guess. One of us is an artist and one of us is a scientist. We have an artsy fartsy and a smartsy smartsy. I'll give you a hint. One of us is super smart and one of us just got stuck with good looks. I'm Steve. This is my brother Mike. We're both getting old. We're in our 60s. Mid to late 60s. Yeah. Scary. You can tell we're brothers. We go to the same barber. And we're both actually Christians. My brother is a scientist, an incredible engineer scientist. Now, he won't tell you that his name is Michael Milroy, but it's actually Dr. Michael Milroy. He's far too humble to let that on, but I don't mind letting the cat out of the bag. I brag about my brother all the time, just as I think he brags about me, but I got more to brag about. So today I wanted to introduce ourselves, and because hopefully we'll be getting to know each other in video land here. My brother Mike he's retired now. As I say, he was a very successful engineer, and in 17 years he took a business from nothing up to the place where he could retire comfortably. That's true. And you know what? I'd like to show a few pictures of his shop. Can we do that right now? He's actually sold his business, but it's still operating and doing really well. Aerospace projects. Here's some of the stuff that he's done. Here's some of his assembly rooms. There's a full machine shop, computerized lathe, mill. He put this all together, and it's really quite remarkable. Contracts in the aerospace industry, hires a lot of people. How many people have you got there, Mike?
Well, we did have 22 at one point.
22
COVID's
people.
Kind of
Yeah, COVID has kicked the crap out of everybody, but it's quite an impressive operation. And like I say, I have to push him to show this stuff off because he is really not a bragging type of guy. And I want you to know that as we make this video, Mike has an incredible heart for people. He's the most giving guy that I know. I mean, he would literally give me the shirt off his back, only I don't think I would look so good in that kind of stuff. I'm more of a t-shirt type of guy. And as I said, I'm an artist, and we actually live in a giant tree stump. Do you want to see it? You don't believe me? Okay. How about, can you actually just put a picture of our tree?
Yeah, I'll just place a picture.
Yeah, okay. So this is a tree stump that we live in. I made this a few years back, and it's not done yet, but it is, I guess, about a 20-foot wide giant, well, a concrete replica of an oak tree. We have oak trees in the area, and I chopped a whole bunch down to make this house, so I thought I'd replace one, a big one. But so it's a lot of fun living in this house. We'll take you on a trip through it maybe in the next episode. And the reason he's making this video is because, like I mentioned, we're Christians, and Mike really believes that it's important for people, especially in today's in academia, science. A lot of science is really junk science. It's phony science. It's science with an agenda to prove that there's no such thing as God. And Mike has had a lifelong struggle with wanting to know for absolutely sure that there is a God. He spent most of his life quite sure, and that drove him nuts. But so he doesn't want you to have to go nuts. He wants you to know the way he does. That, don't you? That's what this is all about. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So today's show is about a creature called Borealopelta, which is. Tell me a little bit about Borealopelta.
Well, it's the best preserved dinosaur fossil probably ever found. Certainly one of the best. It's a nodosaur. It's an armored dinosaur. I think around 3 tons.
Like a stegosaurus kind of.
Well, it's not a stegosaurus. Doesn't have quite as large an armor plates on it as a stegosaurus does.
Well, stegosaurus gets all the press, right? But yeah, Borealopelta is pretty cool too. It's got kind of more like layered armor.
Well, there's some good animation in the Nature of Things video that we're going to splice into our own video here.
So where did they find this exactly?
At Fort McMurray, oil sands,
Alberta. That's Canada. Oh, Canada. And how did they dig it up?
With a big power shovel. So they excavate just mountains of sand to get the oil out of it.
Oh, okay, sand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the oil sand.
And when they dug this creature up, they estimated how old it was when it died, or how many years ago it died.
Well, the scientific, the secular scientists say that this thing lived 110 million years ago.
Okay.
But in actual fact, it was died.
Is that older than you?
Not much. In actual fact, it died in Noah's flood of about 4,800 years ago.
Okay, very recent. Very recent. This I gotta see. Like I know you're an incredible scientist, and my brother Mike is about the most skeptical guy that I know. He's like, show me. So
Yeah.
he wants to show you, because you're probably extremely skeptical of a dinosaur dying 4,800 years ago. But he wants to show what he believes is scientific, absolute scientific proof for this thing. And the reason he wants to do this is not just to say, see, the dinosaurs were recent. There's a reason why he wants you to know that dinosaurs are recent, and it ties into the Bible, does it not?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing more important than to know that the Bible is true.
So if you can trust the Bible on the fact that Noah's flood was true, what are the ramifications of that? What are the further? What follows from that knowledge?
Well, all the mountain ranges in the world were probably pushed up during or after the flood. The Rockies with their stratified layers, you know how picturesque the Rockies are, and the Himalayas are similar, and this all appeared at the end of the flood, when the flood laid down massive amounts of sediment, built up. We'll review the Grand Canyon. Built up a mile high worth of sediment in the Grand Canyon in just half the flood, probably, because there's more sediments outside of the Grand Canyon that were formed later in the flood. And there's fossils in the top of the Himalayas, and fossils in the Rockies, and fossils in the Pyrenees in Spain, and the mountains of Morocco.
And fossils in this room, 2 of them.
Yeah.
Armor plated. So we're going to take a look at Borealopelta. You got a video that you want to show us?
Yeah, we'll be showing clips from the David Suzuki Nature of Things video.
Okay. So I'm kind of itching to get a view of some of these clips of David Kawasaki's video.
Kawasaki, you mean David Suzuki?
Oh, yeah, okay. Now, most people will not have heard of Borealopelta. I hadn't until you brought him to my attention. He's not a big shot like all the other osauruses, like Tyrannosaurus rex or Megasaurus or Brontosaurus or Stegosaurus. But he is very well known amongst dino scientists, I understand. Where did he get his name from, Mike?
Just like all flora and fauna, he's been assigned a very lengthy Latin name, Borealopelta Mark Michelli.
Mm-hmm.
And the boreal refers to a climate zone just south of the Arctic. And the name means shield of the north. And yes, he is well known. I checked out the 100 or so YouTube videos on Borealopelta and found that 99% of them consider the dinosaur to be millions of years old. This video, called The Nature of Things by David Suzuki, points out many things that indicate the dinosaur is not 100 million years old.
Wow, that's Mr. Suzuki, is it? He's a better fed specimen than I had first thought. I originally thought he was just like your old 350cc motorbike, but I think he's more like a full-on 1200, maybe bored out.
Well, let's hope that David Suzuki doesn't watch this video, because we're being rather insulting to a good scientist.
I hope he does.
So here he is in all his glory. Borealopelta is one of the stars in the Royal Tyrrell Museum in Alberta, shown here. The Tyrrell Museum is noted for its strong evolutionary outlook. They have frequent lectures always centered around this secular worldview. I doubt in the entire museum there's a single mention of Noah's flood.
Now, Mike, I understand it took 6 years of painstaking labor for the museum staff to pull this dinosaur fossil out of the rock it was encased in. Man, those guys must have been some gluttons for punishment. As you know, I've done quite a bit of Dremel work in my day, and it can be very tedious.
This computer-generated image shows how they found their star exhibit. Feet pointed up at the sky. And here's Dr. Donald Henderson with some very interesting comments.
If we were walking here 110 million years ago, we would be underwater. This was the bottom of a giant seaway. We would be walking on the seabed. There'd be creatures swimming above me.
When any armored dinosaur is found upside down, on its back, it strongly suggests that its heavy armor weighed it down in water.
You think?
This is simple physics, and not at all an outlandish assertion. Scientists admit that it was buried underwater. In order for this plated reptile to be fossilized, would require it be completely covered with sediment in rapid fashion, such as only happens during a significant flood. Does the name Noah ring any bells?
Ding, ding. We have a winner. So this Borealopelta was probably, what, 8, 10 feet tall?
I don't think it was that
6
tall.
feet tall.
Probably 6 feet
6
tall.
feet tall. So it had to lay down 6 feet of mud very quickly.
Yes. The video spends quite a bit of time discussing a possible predator that killed Borealopelta. But the body did not show any signs of predation. The animal was not the victim of a predatory attack. It's much more likely that it simply drowned in the flood.
We've started finding pigment.
Wait, what? What? Hold the phone. I thought this fossil was supposed to be 100 million years old.
What is pigment still doing in the dinosaur?
Well, that's what I'd like to know. Maybe we can look at the article and see what they say in, was it Spectacular Dinosaur Has Skin, Horns, and Pigments.
Yes.
Maybe we can read that.
On the website icr.org, it has technical details on this. The article states, it had secondary organic molecular structures called kerogen that form when primary pigments break down and mix underground.
The article also states that the dinosaur is almost as pristine a preservation as an Egyptian mummy, but it reveals nodosaur skin scales with kerogen's energy-packed chemical bonds still intact.
Though lab studies have not yet measured the expected shelf life for kerogen, this specimen still contains organic chemistry fragile enough to challenge the fossil's vast age assignments.
Microbes feed on kerogens, but even with no microbes in sight, kerogens still have plenty of potential chemical energy that inevitably reacts with other chemicals in an incessant chemical breakdown.
Though they may be tough, kerogens cannot last forever and should not last anywhere close to the 112 to 125 million years assigned to this fossil.
Another article, More T-Rex Soft Tissues, on the website icr.org, talks about numerous discoveries of soft tissue found recently in dinosaur bones.
From an initial find in 1997, as of 2019, there are now over 100 cases of soft organic tissue like collagen, chitin, and protein remnants seen in the bones.
The article states, on one hand, fossil experts keep reporting more biochemicals in all kinds of fossils.
On the other hand, protein experts keep confirming that biochemicals cannot possibly last millions of years. And here is another example of a soft tissue found in a dinosaur. This picture shows an artist's conception of an ichthyosaur. Here's the article on the ichthyosaur by the National Geographic. a group well known for its evolutionary beliefs. The title is Incredible Sea Monster Fossil Still Has Skin and Blubber. Some 180 million years ago, in what's now Germany, a dolphin-like creature died and sank to the bottom of an ancient ocean. Remarkably, the creature's burial at sea preserved its body in stunning detail, including the first chemical clues that suggest these prehistoric animals had whale-like blubber. The animal's skin still bears folds and ripples, as well as cells that held some of the animal's pigmentation and the chemical traces of blubber. Controversially, researchers also claim that the remains still have vestiges of their original proteins. Notice the last sentence, controversially. Why is it controversial? Because these people don't want to believe that the dinosaur is just a few thousand years old. They want it to be 180 million years old.
Ichthyosaurus. That's a crazy looking creature. Where'd they get the name of that thing? Ichthyosaurus. You know, I got a feeling it's called Ichthyosaurus, Uncle Mike.
Uncle Mike.
No, I mean Professor Mike. You're an uncle and a professor. But Ichthyosaurus, I think I would have called it Razorbeak.
It's certainly a fearsome looking creature.
Very fierce. How big was that?
Boy, they're dolphin size, I believe.
Oh, dolphin size. Yeah, okay.
I spent roughly 7,000 hours preparing the specimen. I've been over every square millimeter. So far, I haven't seen any evidence of an attack.
Wow. What did he say, 7,000 hours?
Yes, 7,000
He must have poured over every single square inch of this animal, and yet he didn't find any sign of an attack or a reason why it should have died. Do you have a theory on that?
Well, this is what happened in the flood. Most animals, or all animals, simply drowned. It would have died. If it would have died of old age, it would have been decomposed or scavenged.
Okay, yeah. So it had to be very quick and covered by silt, sediment, something like that.
Yeah.
Big swirl of sand.
Yes.
Okay.
Kay Berensmeyer is a world-renowned expert in taphonomy, the study of how animals decay and turn into fossils.
This is a time-lapse decomposition sequence of a lizard called a tegu.
The time-lapse reveals the normal stages of decomposition over just 2 months.
Wow. So it bloats up so quickly. There's almost a point where you expect it to just explode, and then it doesn't, but it does seem like it ruptured on the lower side because you see the skin coming up.
It's the stomach cavity that expels the gas. The fluids that were released fed the organisms that are making the soil move. A friend of mine once said that you're never so alive as when you're dead.
Yes.
I guess it's kind of what happened to all the great composers of the of the 1800s, 1700s, you know, Tchaikovsky, Mendelssohn, Beethoven, Chopin.
They decompose their day.
They decomposed. That was bad. Anyways, carry on.
Well, since Borealopelta is so well preserved, it means something unusual happened in its death. It must have been buried rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
The story we are told of how fossils formed is that an organism dies, falls to the ground, or the bottom of the ocean is gradually covered by sediment.
Gradually.
Yes. Over thousands of years, the sediment hardens to rock, and the organism becomes fossilized.
Now think of the last time you went to the beach. Were you stepping on the carcasses of fossilizing fish? No. Dead fish quickly break up and decompose.
What's needed for fossilization is rapid burial to the full depth of the animal. This condition was provided for in Noah's flood.
Okay, now, Brother Mike. I've called you Professor and Uncle, but I'll call you Brother Mike now. And I have mentioned that I'm not a scientist. I was born at night, but not last night. They said in there that a fossil is created when an animal dies and is gradually covered with sediment. And yet they just showed us an animal within 2 months bloating up, said it's never been more alive, and it disappeared. It's eaten or it's just blown away. It's just gone. So how can you gradually cover a dead dinosaur? We might have fossils of the first 3 inches of their feet, but the rest would be gone. They can't have it both ways, can they?
They will show animation of the dinosaur falling to the bottom and being completely covered.
Really?
Yeah.
I have dove to the bottom of the lake many times. I've never been covered. I usually just hit the bottom and bounce back up.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, why don't you tell us about the Grand Canyon walls?
Okay. Here's a drawing of the Grand Canyon. It's done by evolutionists, and there's 3 layers shown, but the layers are not that important to us right now. What is important is that this represents half of the sediment laid down in the flood.
Where's the rest of it then? Where's the rest of the sediment?
It's farther back in Bryce Canyon and other places.
So the top of what we're seeing here is where tourists could drive their car to and peek over the edge.
Yes.
And that's how, 1,000 feet or?
Oh, it's a mile high.
A mile high, 5,000 feet high?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That's a lot of dirt.
Yeah.
It's a lot of clay and soil and everything else.
Yeah. So at the top, it's labeled 270 million years. Mm-hmm. That, of course, is evolutionary timeline.
Okay, so that I'm assuming that there's no dinosaurs buried below that, because dinosaurs didn't evidently appear on Earth until what, 250, 200,000, 200 million?
That's their story.
200 million years ago. Okay, so there's no dinosaurs below there. We know that, or we think we know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The body was found in a greenish-colored rock, rich in a mineral called glauconite.
Oh yeah, there's the green right there. Glauconite tells us it's a marine rock. It also only forms in water that's at least 50 meters deep. So we've got a minimum depth of burial for the Borealopelta carcass. When you look at this rock, there are no burrows in here. There were no little creatures crawling around the seabed.
So this dinosaur specimen was found in a green rock that only forms in at least 50 meters of water. And there are no burrows in the seabed.
Eh?
No creatures crawling around.
Dun, 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 dun. Ah! Okay.
This has also been observed with trilobite fossils. As the flood progressed, they didn't have time to burrow, as sediment was continually building up.
So the rock that has formed and turned to trilobites and turned Borealopelta and what is it, that razorbeak guy?
Yeah,
it's pretty much clean, solid rock without a lot of burrow holes and stuff, right? That's how they know it happened quickly.
Yeah.
For 2 reasons: because there's no burrow holes, and because the animal didn't decompose.
Yeah, yeah. Double evidence for a rapid sedimentation.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Let's use red markers to show belly up, and we'll use black to show belly down. Well, we know this one.
Borealopelta from the Clearwater Formation, upside down. We have an Ankylosaurus from the Scollard Formation, upside down. We have an Anodontosaurus from the Horseshoe Canyon Formation, which was also upside down. We have an indeterminate Ankylosaur, which is right side up.
Okay.
We have another right side up, upside down, upside down, upside down, upside down. Edmontonia lying on its side. And then 2 more, both upside down.
Okay, this is my last red one. Okay. I think we see a pattern. About 70% of the armored dinosaurs found in this province are found on their backs.
70% of dinosaurs are found on their backs. I agree that top-heavy dinosaurs must tend to sink, land on their backs when in water. There must have been a lot of floods back in Alberta in those days, or else there was just one big global flood. Here's a clip from an excellent 23-minute YouTube video on the flood.
Noah's flood and catastrophic plate tectonics from Pangea to today. I really want to watch that. Pangea, of course, is when the Earth was one big supercontinent, and then tectonic plate activity, it all separated. We have our continents of today. That must have been a disaster of, pardon the term here, biblical proportions.
It sure was.
Probably where they got the saying. Okay, big bro, can you show me again how the scientists at the Royal Tyrrell Museum say that Borealopelta was actually covered by 6 or 8 feet of silt in a very short period of time?
And it goes down like a stone.
Borealopelta's body hits the seafloor with enough force to bury itself.
They theorized that the body got bloated and floated out to sea, then sunk and hit the bottom with enough force to bury itself. This is very unreasonable. If an object is barely floating, then starts to sink, it will be barely sinking.
Barely sinking.
It will then sink slowly and gently and come to rest on the bottom. The scientist is trying to explain how the body was obviously quickly covered in sediment that preserved the body. A much more reasonable explanation is that the rapid sedimentation that occurred during Noah's flood is the cause. Borealopelta died in Noah's flood 4,300 years ago.
Well, you're right about that, Mike. It's apparent even to me, a non-scientist, that the millions and millions of years sort of time frame is bogus. Science points directly toward the recent burial at sea of Borealopelta and Ichthyosaurus, and all the trilobites. Why do you think evolutionary scientists are so averse to accepting this recent time frame? Do you think there could possibly be an agenda behind their refusal to admit the obvious?
Of course there is, because if they admit that the biblical account of Noah's flood is real and true, then they would have to admit that the flood was the result of God's judgment on mankind that attempted to ditch him from their lives. God is holy and cannot and will not allow sin to continually run unabated. He judged the world with water 4,300 years ago, and poor Borealopelta suffered the consequences of man's sin, along with most of the human race.
So, am I guessing what you're telling us right now is the whole reason that you even care about the time frame of Borealopelta, etc.? Am I right?
Yes, it truly is, Steve, because God has set a time and date when he will soon judge the world again, but this time with fire. And he's prepared an ark for those of us today to be saved in, just as Noah was.
I see where you're going here, and I do agree wholeheartedly, Mike. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, is the ark of safety. Everyone who trusts in him for salvation will be taken out in safety. Why don't you actually read a little passage from scriptures that talks about this very thing?
Yeah, okay, I will. In 2 Peter 3, 5-7, God says, "But they deliberately forget that long ago by God's word the heavens came into being, and the earth was formed out of water and by water. By these waters also the world of that time was deluged and destroyed. By the same word the present heavens and earth are reserved for fire, being kept for the day of judgment and destruction of the ungodly." Scientists today refuse to believe the Bible about Noah's flood, just as the scripture passage says they would. But notice that judgment is again to come in the form of fire.
Mike, I know you have a concern for people in general, and as a scientist, your heart is also for your fellow scientists. I know you're concerned for more than their temporal safety. It is their eternal safety that really concerns you.
Yes.
And it does me as well. That's why I am helping you with this video rather than doing my own arty stuff. The human soul is of much greater worth than any other pursuit or thing in the universe. I just hope that what you have presented here will cause someone, anyone, to reevaluate where they will stand in relation to God before the end of their life. We both want you to get on the ark with us.
Amen, brother. The fire that will destroy the earth will only be the precursor to the fire of hell that burns forever. Whether you end up there or in God's perfect paradise, 100 million years will hardly be a brief moment when compared with eternity.
Drop in the bucket.
Please join us. We want you to enjoy God's heaven with us.
Yes, right on.
We apologize for giving 4,800 years and 4,300 years ago as dates for the flood. A more accurate estimate is 4,350 years ago. I would love to hear from you at nmilroy@milroy.io.